Welcome to episode 2 of the Serpents Tongue podcast. In this episode, we are just going to freestyle. We've got a lot to talk about and not a lot of time. We're in crazy times here, folks. Can you not see it? Can you not sniff it out? Can you not sense it? Something's wrong here, folks. Something's seriously wrong. And this isn't a podcast for pessimism. This is actually a podcast built around or on a foundation of optimism. But sometimes, guys, in order to be truly optimistic, we've got to know the truth of what's going on. Otherwise, how can you actually be optimistic about anything? How can you actually, create something of benefit in a world filled full of wrong if you don't have an objective view of what the truth of what's actually going on? Like, how can you do that? How? Everybody wants to ignore the harsh stuff in life, and everybody wants to just dwell in the positivity. It's stupid, it's self-centered, and it's selfish, and nothing good ever really comes from that, folks. So I'm here to tell you that we live in hell. This is a purgatory realm of sorts that's waiting to go through a transitionary process where human beings wake up, become enlightened, and terraform the earth back to what it was designed to be. This is a evolutionary platform, ladies and gentlemen, this natural kingdom that we live in, that we call Earth or Terra or Gaia, whatever you want to call it. Earth is a shamanic, living, breathing entity. It is a living library of information. It is an evolutionary platform that we have turned into a hell, ladies and gentlemen. The Matrix has been put into the natural kingdom, and it has set up its 1,000-headed Hydra system with its shopping malls and its education centers and its street poles and all its shit, its roads. It has created an artificial world within a real organic world, that real organic world being nature. Now, I'm not here to tell you that we should just be hippies and wear loincloths and swing from vines like Tarzan. But I am here to tell you that there can be an absolutely beautiful blend, a shamanic science of sorts, between merging certain aspects of technology with nature, the shamanic technologies of nature, which we are completely unaware of. 99% of us are completely unaware of this. So people get raised in this system where they learn to think that iPhones and smart technology and all this stuff is incredibly advanced. Well, at the same time, these people can use a fucking phone underneath a tree and never see how advanced a fucking tree is because you look at things, you don't see them. We've gone over how this works in the past, ladies and gentlemen, the difference between looking at something and seeing them, or seeing that particular thing, so I'm not going to get into great detail about it. But let me just tell you that your senses have been conditioned to interact with not only your body and your mind in a suboptimal way, but your senses have been conditioned so that you don't see any of what's going on around you in nature, folks. You don't see the subtle organizing energy fields around trees anymore, or shrubs or grass or animals. You exist in a suboptimal state. You have your assemblage point shifted and locked into a suboptimal position where you only interact with a tiny little fragment of the entire electromagnetic spectrum. Oh, but you've got it all figured out, right? You've got it all figured out. Bullshit. There are multiple layers to the onion of life, and anytime you think that you've got it figured out, folks, you better humble yourself. And that's one of the things that I try to teach the most. Belief is dangerous. It is the question that drives us. Just like Trinity told Neo in the first Matrix film, it is the question that drives us. We have to constantly question everything, even those things that are dear to our heart. But the most important thing to question, folks, is the beliefs that we harbor about the reality that we live in, about who we are and what our purpose is. And you will never question those types of beliefs while you're steady chasing the fucking Matrix thrill, if you will. They're playing this toxic game like a dog chasing its tail. This is why we go over multiple protocols on the channel, the Sacred Serpent channel, and we'll go over them on the podcast. We go over various protocols on how to actually begin questioning. A lot of you guys don't even know how to begin questioning. Questioning doesn't come from just sitting in a dark room and going, who am I? What am I? No. Questioning comes, ladies and gentlemen, as a direct byproduct of slowing the mind down. Slowing the body's processes down. Questioning naturally comes from nourishing the body properly, getting the magnesium reserves up, getting some vitamin C in your system, and not the pathetic little allotment that the government wants to tell you is enough. I'm talking about large doses of vitamin C, getting the antioxidants into your system so that you can stop fucking the massive oxidative stress that is killing you. How are you ever going to be able to question a good goddamn thing, folks? When your body is so stressed, when your body and when your cells are like dying from no oxygen, how the fuck are you going to be able to genuinely question things when your emotional body is full of monumental layers of stress? You see, we've got to slow everything down. And then as a byproduct from getting the tachometer to not be in the red line, once the motor starts to idle at an efficient rate and we get the oil back into the vehicle and we get the air filter changed, the spark plugs changed, once we bleed the brakes and change the transmission fluid, once we put a new set of brakes on, folks, and we get a new muffler, once we get the engine to breathe better, once the car starts to function properly, then questioning becomes a natural default byproduct of existence. Does that not make sense? You see, questioning doesn't just come from going into a room, like I said earlier, and just saying, who am I? No, because those questions, there's a certain layer of health that needs to be achieved, ladies and gentlemen, before any questions can be answered. I hope that makes sense. It sounds kind of contradictory, but I'm not talking about questions and answers like book-related questions and answers. I'm talking about deep questions and answers about who we are, what our purpose is, what this earth is, you name it. The body has its own intelligence. That's what I'm trying to say. The mind has its own intelligence. But culture and bad health has gotten in the way, and it keeps our body and our mind in a state of disconnection where we don't have any common sense anymore. We don't have any rationality, because without common sense, you don't have rationality. And when you don't have rationality, you don't grasp basic answers to the deepest questions of life that come just naturally. I hope that makes sense. Excuse me. I haven't got a lot of sleep lately, you guys. I'm a little stressed out myself from that. So I'm not saying that I'm just some perfect stress-free creature, folks. I'm not saying that I'm some perfectly healthy individual. I've got some extra fluff on me right now. We all make mistakes, and, there's certain aspects of my own health regimen that need to be evolved. That's not what I'm trying to say. However, there's a difference between worldly stress and, real stress. Worldly stress is when you worry about your taxes and shit like that. Real stress is the stress we talked about earlier that's in the emotional body, the stress that comes from living a false version of yourself. And that happens by growing up in a culture that teaches you to be a false version of yourself. That, when you mold yourself into that false version of yourself, there's a constant spiritual, emotional, physical, and mental stress that becomes this constant humdrum, this grind that you're unaware of because it's unconscious. And it accelerates entropy and kills you. It creates muscle memory that's unhealthy, and it just completely reprograms your life. And that's why, folks, we talk about slowing the body's processes down. This is why we talk about cooling the mind down and doing the thoughtlessness exercise and fortifying the body with high ORAC foods and magnesium and vitamin C and vitamin E and getting the minerals into our system. We talk about these things like getting more boron and vanadium into the system, folks, so that we can remove the real stress that's killing us. You see, people think stress is bills and car payments. That's not real stress. That's worldly stress, and that does indeed have an effect on your health, ladies and gentlemen. But it comes nowhere near the actual stress, the real stress. And that real stress is created by living a false fucking version of yourself, where you're disconnected from your angelic self, where you're disconnected from the Kundalini, when you're disconnected from the Promethean fire, when you're disconnected from your Shen centers, also known as your chakras or your energy wheels. That's the real stress, because that's death. We were programmed to live a certain way of life, ladies and gentlemen. We have a certain genetic potential that we were put here to exhibit, to evolve. We're not doing that. We're not doing that. We are angelic creatures designed to experience enlightenment, we're supposed to have no limitations. But we're here worrying about jobs and politics, folks, and stupid bullshit. Real stress comes from living the false version of yourself. You've become a domesticated creature living in a false fucking environment. You don't have access to your Shen centers anymore. That causes your body to decay at an accelerated rate. It's called accelerated entropy, folks. So, again, I can't stress enough the importance of the full body relaxation exercise. Ladies and gentlemen, taking the blood pressure herbs, getting the garlic into your system, the hibiscus, some passion flower, just cooling yourself down. You've got to cool yourself down, because even if you think you're not stressed, folks, even if you think you're happy, there's a layer of stress grinding away like a grinding wheel at your lifespan, because you're not actually exhibiting, or you're not actually using your genetics the way that you're supposed to use your genetics. I hope that makes sense. Within our genes, within our DNA, it's Kundalini. It's evolution. It's constantly, we're supposed to be pushing the boundaries. We're supposed to be literal gods on earth. Demigods, part man, part beast, part angel. Just like the Baphomet. We've gone over the Baphomet in prior videos, and I'm not going to get into some huge expose about it or, explanation. A lot of people think the Baphomet is a demonic symbol. It shows me how limited your mind is. You're looking at something, you're not seeing it. We've gone over again, like I said earlier, the differences between looking and seeing things in the past. We've gone over it extensively. Carlos Castaneda talks about it in his books. Don Juan teaches Carlos beautifully about the differences between looking and seeing things. It's completely different. The Baphomet's demonic because it has the head of a goat on it. The Baphomet is a Kundalini symbol. It shows you how you're part man or part beast, part angel, folks. So I've said for years that within our genetic code, within our DNA, folks, we are actual angelic byproducts of the true living God, not the false God out here that's pretending to be God, which is actually the devil in disguise. We are actually designed to be angels without any limitations, and when you experience Kundalini, you actually become an angel. You become the angel. And I mean that quite literally, folks. I mean that quite literally. That's a hard thing to explain, because most people, it's difficult for a lot of people in their current state of conditioning to grasp some of the things that I'm saying, because just like how there's a difference between looking at something and seeing it, there's a difference between listening and hearing. There's a huge difference. So if you could grasp some of the things that I've seen throughout my life, I've seen things that this body can do that the experts would tell you are impossible. I've seen portals literally open up into different dimensions, and I've seen entities come out of them. I've seen this body of mine do incredible things. I'm not even going to get into it. We've gone over it extensively. But when the Kundalini moves through our systems, folks, we become like life becomes holographic. Everything changes. We're actually designed to have an entire ancestral army of sorts of angels around us at all times. We all do. We just don't see them anymore because we exist in hell. So it's kind of like how Jesus says in the Essene Gospel of Peace, Book 4. He talks about how there's a huge Jesus says in the Essene Gospel of Book Peace 4 that although you see and hear them not, still the angels of God surround you and watch you and guide you through hell. Jesus then goes on to talk about how if an individual actually undergoes the real healing, which is the great alchemical art, the forging of the Philosopher's Stone, the magnum opus, if an individual actually heals his or herself, ladies and gentlemen, the angels will be able to be seen again. I hope that makes sense. The angels are actually part of your auric field. They're like a holographic temple of these fourth and fifth dimensional, they're like energy constructs, pillars of sorts that guide your soul through the various dimensional wavelengths of like just all of these like dimensions and different experiences for the soul. I hope that makes sense. Like the soul, the spirit is in this library where it moves through these different incarnations, and these angels guide the soul through these incarnations, but they're here around us at all times. And when the Kundalini ignites, you actually see them. It's a lot like the that Tool song Parabola, like at the end when the Kundalini moves up the guy's spine and he like all the eyes light up around him. That's symbolism of the angelic kingdom's awakening. I hope that makes sense. You see into God's kingdom, which is symbolic of the eyes. It's very difficult to explain. So, one of the foundation of what I like to teach you guys is that there's an entire version of you that's being stolen from culture, and it's a false version of yourself. You're being lied to, and you're buying into it, and you think you're something that you're not, when you're actually far more than what you think you are. It's a very sad story. The fall of humanity. It's a very, very sad thing. And the only way you're ever going to be able to understand how sad it is to experience these states of consciousness, to experience gnosis, Christ consciousness, nirvana, and it's all possible. It is all possible. Never let anyone tell you that it's not. Never do that, because if you do let someone tell you that something's impossible and you believe it, that's called enslavement to someone else's belief systems. That's ridiculous. I'm convinced that humans can do anything when we put our minds together and when we shed the layers of programming that keep us in a suboptimal state, the suboptimal state that we're in now. And unfortunately for us, it's a very difficult thing to break through the programming that we're currently stuck in. It just is, guys. It's a very rigid program that takes considerable effort to break through, and that's why I know most people won't ever be able to get through it. I just do. There's far too much sacrifice that comes from walking the razor's edge. There's far too much of your sanity that you'll have to let go of. You'll have to go insane a little bit. Sometimes you got to let go of something to get a better grip, if you catch my drift, folks. You just do. And most people hold on to their sanity far too strong. You see, you've just been conditioned to think that sanity is actual sanity. The sanity that most people harbor is insanity, because it's sanity that's been defined by the status quo or the system. And the system's version of sanity is actual insanity. Because if you're sane by the system's definition, then you're following the blueprint that's been laid out for you. It's a control blueprint. Sanity by the system standards, if I can speak today, is defined by compliance to cultural norms. compliance to, believing what they're telling you about the earth or this, that, and the other, about where you came from or who you evolved or what you evolved from. Just a bunch of these culturally accepted ideas that no one learns to question. That's sanity. How is accepting a bunch of beliefs without knowing why sanity? You tell me. Please tell me. Please tell me how that's sane to you. Because that's not sane. Sanity is not defined by just haphazard belief in experts just because they have degrees and all this other nonsense. Please tell me how that's sane so that I can understand where you are mentally. Please tell me. Sanity, by the system's definitions, is compliance to the general status quo, if you will, the agreed upon consensus of all of these committees and organizations which tell you what to think, that promote that way of thinking through schooling, through media, through the mass weight, the peer pressuring, the gaslighting of all of these experts that get on the TV and tell you what to believe, and basically that you're crazy if you don't believe what they tell you to believe. How is that fucking sane? Please tell me. I've seen how people get treated just by questioning the shape of the fucking earth by these people who, are the experts, or they're so sane, or this, that, and the other. Why the fuck do you care so much if people don't believe that, the agreed upon shape of the earth or all this other nonsense? I've seen the way the so-called experts who think they're sane treat people for not conforming to their beliefs. They'll get fucking downright nasty. And in a creature like that, a creature that exhibits that type of behavior is not a sane creature to me. All these teachers and all of these doctors and all these yes men, these lackeys. That's not sane to me. And I don't care if you think I'm insane for thinking that that's not sane. Sanity to me comes from rationality, from having common sense. Sanity to me, ladies and gentlemen, is having a more complete control over one's mind and reasoning skills. And sanity, again, by the system's standards, is like you going to school and accepting the cultural norms that are pushed on you. How is that sane? And in the school system, it's such a beautiful mind control system because there's incentives behind it, folks. They're called grades. And they peer pressure you into thinking that if you don't get those good grades, you'll never amount to anything. I remember to this day, as I drive past my fucking school right now, ironically, I remember my teachers peer pressuring us into, you better figure out a career. Otherwise, you might not amount to anything. You might end up homeless. I shit you not. Those were the words that came out of one of my teachers. What a great thing to teach children at such a young and receptive age. Fear? Fear? You won't amount to anything? Fear? Really? You're going to teach fear? And as a child myself, when I was younger, I could sniff that on teachers. Like you're just a piece of shit. No, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a fucking teacher. I don't think you're smart just because you're a teacher. In order for me to actually learn from someone, I've got to have a certain layer of respect. And that respect, ladies and gentlemen, is built upon the wisdom of the individual teaching. I hope that makes sense. Now, I'm not saying that you can't learn things from people who you don't have respect for, because that's obviously true. And I shouldn't have even mentioned that because I'm talking about learning wisdom. I'm not talking about worldly learning. So let's just go back and delete what I just said about that, and let's just keep moving forward, guys. Let's not talk about the past so much in school and all that, because we've talked about it already, and we've talked about it quite a bit. let's talk about the recovery process, you guys. We've got it all laid out on this channel, part of it at least. I'm not saying that I've got it all figured out, but I do think I have a pretty strong foundation of teachings that can really help people grasp more out of life and start accessing more of your brain power so that you can kind of access more. What's the word I'm looking for? I was trying to pull a Tool lyric out of my mind that resonated with what I was saying. Guys, long story short, we have the full body relaxation exercise. You do that for an hour, and then you start practicing the yoga of Frank Rudolph Jung. You start opening those vertebral openings so that your brain and your body can communicate better. Once the vertebral openings get wider after they've been restricted your whole life, you will start to have your common sense come back to you at an accelerated rate, in the way that you interpret reality and the way that you feel about yourself, God, and life in general will begin to change by default, guys. This is something that has to be experienced. So I teach a spiritual path mixed with emotional work, mental work, and physical work. Nutrition, mental work through magic, emotional work through like regression techniques, and learning to freeze your mind, and spiritual work, which is the practice of yoga. I hope that makes sense. We're trying to make a cohesive blend of the various layers of existence so that we're not just benefiting from one, which is what most people teach. You know, oh, health is just about a multivitamin and like getting to bed on time and swimming once a week and going to the doctor. Fuck that. That's not true. There's much more to health than just the physical. In fact, you could eat all the right foods in the world and still be sick because you have a spiritual sickness or a mental imbalance. And everybody's got that. We all do. Don't try to act like you don't, motherfucker. Just because, oh, you created a platform that's successful, or you created a business that's successful built around health, so you've got it all figured out. Ladies and gentlemen, dead trees that are cut into paper and mass produced with Freemasons on them, the amount of those in the bank that, you know, your success for your little supplement business or whatever it is in life does not in any way, shape, or form indicate your actual success. It means that you were able to make money, motherfucker. It does not mean that you actually succeeded in your own development. Some of the biggest idiots, the biggest scoundrels, the biggest fools, some of the most evil people in the world have the majority of the money. So if you think money is an indicator of real success, you're fooling yourself. And sure, it feels good to have money in the bank, but don't let it prop up your ego to the point that you think that you've gotten it right. Ladies and gentlemen, life will humble you. There is many layers to the onion of this reality, to your consciousness, to what God actually is. We are isolated units in an infinite ocean of energy. And we've been programmed. And in our programming, we think that we've got it all figured out when we only use less than 1% of our brain and bodily and consciousness power. You have got to humble yourself before reality humbles you. And this is one of the reasons why I teach so adamantly and regularly the importance of slaying self-importance and rebuilding yourself. A radical redeployment of one's own energy. We have videos about that on the channel. We have various videos about this on the channel, folks. So, as I was saying before I went off on an ADHD moment, what we do, guys, is we start by doing the full body relaxation exercise. Lay on a hard surface, do a corpse pose, let every fucking muscle in your body go, let your bones hang, let your genitals hang, your breasts, your face, let all of the tension in your face go. Let it all go. Use your mind to travel up and down your body and relax every single muscle group and piece of your body. And you will, over time, start to experience radical peace. And through that peace, you will reprogram your muscle memory. So that subject alone is so much more complicated. The subject of the full body relaxation exercise. There's so much that can be said about this. The problem is, ladies and gentlemen, is that these hour-long videos, these 30-minute-long videos, even these 2-hour-long videos, I'm only able to go so far. And I fear in my limited time I fear that the overall message will be lost, and that it will be listened to instead of being heard. Of which there's a huge difference between the two, guys. There's a huge difference between hearing something and listening to it, in the same way that there's a difference between seeing something and looking at something. Any idiot can look at something, but only a wise person can see something for what it actually is. It's kind of like a painting where there's a bunch of stuff hidden in the painting. Anyone can look at it, but that doesn't mean you're seeing all the hidden stuff. Anyone can look at a tree. That doesn't mean you see it for what it is, all the subtle organizing energy fields and the energy vortexes coming out of it. Trees are living libraries of consciousness that actually have angelic hierarchies of spirits within them. You see, you don't think that this garden is just for your visual pleasure, do you? God's real kingdom? These trees? If the average person could get his assemblage point to move back into the right position where he or she gained more access to the electromagnetic spectrum, and he or she walked under a tree and saw it for fucking what it is, he or she would be driven insane. Because to actually glimpse reality for what it is without your blinders, to see the actual living kingdom, to see the energy fields around everything, would drive you mad. Because it would make you question your entire existence, because you've been led to see, or you've been led to think that things are just these material objects. And I'm not talking about just, seeing auras and whatnot, which everything has an aura, an electromagnetic field. I'm not even going to get into it, folks. And auras aren't just these fogs around people. I'm so sick of everybody thinking that they've got it figured out, even though you've never experienced it. People think that an aura is like this little amount of light that comes off of a person's body. No, ladies and gentlemen, those are heat signatures coming off the protoplasm that we just can't see because we don't see past our blinders in the electromagnetic spectrum. A real aura is a geometric grid connected to the 5 platonic solids that is so beautiful that it would make the average person weep significantly. But you'll go your whole life never actually seeing one of these. Including all these charlatan-ass psychics who think that they're tuned in when they're not. You see auras. No, you don't. I can tell just based on your personality and the things that you talk about and the way that you there's just so many charlatans out there, folks. Through proper magic, we can rebuild our mind. Through proper dietary alterations, we can rebuild our body. Through sorcery, we can begin to shift the assemblage point's position so that you, the listener, can begin to experience the energetic reality that we live in. You can indeed begin to see auras. You can indeed begin to see the energy body of your human body. What are you fucking waiting for? You see, this is a journey. Life is like a level to a video game, but you're steady over here just trying to stack money and just get through the moment. A lot of you guys aren't actually trying to achieve things that you've been told are impossible. And we kind of went over this in the first podcast episode about how I used to try to learn to fly. This is a platform, you guys. This is a platform. Life is a platform. And what are platforms for? Well, they're a stationary object that we use to pretty much have a footing. And platforms are used as a starting point to get from one point to another. So, through sorcery, through eating right, through supplementation, we begin to shift that assemblage point position so that we can grasp that there's probably more going on out there. There's more to life, ladies and gentlemen. There's a lot more. And once you start to realize this, folks, once you actually start to experience the vastness of life, the infinite power of your mind, and like once you start to experience the differences in your health from the proper supplementation programs, you name it, you'll begin to question by default. Like we said earlier, you'll begin to not only question, am I being lied to? You'll begin to know it. And then once you have a firm foundation of that and you get over the trauma of the fact that you've been lied to by the establishment, you'll have a unique outlook on life based on your repositioning of your energy field and like who you are on a fundamental level. And now you'll not just think that, okay, maybe the whole I can only live to 100 thing is bullshit. You won't just think that, you'll know it. And there's a huge difference between thinking something and knowing it. Because when you know something with every fiber of your being, you hook the subconscious's power to it. And suddenly it becomes a reality. When you just think things, are a certain way, and maybe I can live this long, and I don't know though. Like, you don't have the power of your subconscious mind behind you. You just don't. And because of that, you don't actually achieve. When you know things and you have the power of knowing something in the form of belief, your subconscious mind instructs your reality to create that thing. I hope that makes sense. But when you aren't sure about something, you don't really have the full power of your subconscious, so it's kind of hit and miss. And more often than not, it's a miss. So this is why I put such stress on you guys, the viewers, on doing the inner work and the physical work, the full body relaxation exercise, the thoughtlessness exercise, the inner temple exercise, and the motionlessness exercise. These things will freeze your overactive mind that's been put into a just constant go, go, go mentality by living in this culture. It'll help you freeze your mind, and in doing so, allow you to escape the constant humdrum or movement of your body-mind complex. You'll begin to be able to observe things from outside of yourself and see how you've been conditioned to operate in a suboptimal fashion. And through that understanding, you will change yourself on a fundamental level. And through changing yourself on a fundamental level, your beliefs, your interpretations, your expectations, everything will change by default. And as things change, your beliefs will change. And as your beliefs change, you'll look at everything differently. You'll interact with reality differently and other people and life in general. And suddenly, what you used to believe in with every fiber of your being will now seem silly. All these beliefs that people hold on to about life that are keeping them imprisoned because their subconscious mind is behind it. Does that make sense? I hope it does. As you evolve out of the stasis that you've been put in, the Matrix put a stasis on your development. Once you break that stasis and start moving, you'll move past the culturally accepted beliefs about aging and what's possible and all this bullshit. And as that happens, what you used to believe in your suboptimal state will now be laughable in your more evolved state. And it will completely change how you interact with everything. It will make life better. You'll react, or you'll respond, for instance, to time differently. If you can move your assemblage point, not just shift it, but move it, you will be able to, your interaction with time will change entirely, because there's a huge conspiracy about time, folks, in our interaction with it. And it causes a subconscious entropy engagement that causes our physical body to age accelerated in an accelerated fashion. I hope that makes sense. By shifting the assemblage point, by moving it, we have the ability to interact with time different because we start to see things properly. Once we move and shift the assemblage point, the core cognitive constructs that culture is embedded into our cognitive framework change. Our interaction with time changes. And when your interaction with time changes, when you don't just see it for this linear A to B process, that the foundation is it's just this aging program. Once you can get rid of your time programming, you're going to age slower. Because the subconscious belief behind time is enraptured with aging. Entropy. We look at the duration of something's existence as an aging process, if you will. We can thwart and blunt the aging process not just by taking antioxidants, high-ORAC foods, and getting rid of the gluten and the bad foods, removing the somatic stress, the muscle memory programming, you name it. We largely influence time's effect on us, or aging's effect on us, by changing our cognitive beliefs about how we interact with time, what time is, folks. That's huge. No one else is talking about this. Nobody. And that's a sorcery practice, ladies and gentlemen. The actual changing of the subconscious's connection to timing, or time in general. Sorcery can make you younger. Sorcery can also teach you how to redeploy your own energy so that you can conserve the energy that you're burning up now that's leading to your own demise. Sorcery is largely about redeployment of things. Things are being deployed in a non-salubrious manner, and through sorcery we redeploy them so that we get benefit from it, so that we don't just have a gas tank that has holes in it, whereby as you fill the gas tank it's falling out. Magic and physical health are the foundations of health, ladies and gentlemen. Magic in taking care of your physical body. Once you do those things long enough, however, the doors of sorcery open, and that's how you evolve spiritually. That's how we get access to that Kundalini energy. It's through sorcery. It's through the shifting and moving at the assemblage point. That's how we begin doing this. That's how we initiate these processes, folks. So, from my perspective, life pumps people out. They come into this world. They get conditioned with curriculum and a few very culturally accepted beliefs, and that's it for them. They never go and shatter those beliefs or try to obtain more. They never really grasp the fact that life itself is an onion with multiple layers. They just exist within that core layer that they learn to identify with. And that's it. And that's why you experience aging so fastly. That's why life sucks for many people. This, that, and the other. How can life be meaningful to you when you don't really feel much, when you don't see outside of those first layers? Through magic, physical health, and sorcery, the inner work, you name it, we peel the layers of the onion back, folks, and we start to see the vastness of life. We start to see that everything's hyper-conscious, that this is basically just a giant material soup of God particles, and that we're in an isolated unit in this. That this is a giant alchemical masterpiece that we're living in, and that we can experience greatness. You want to expand your life span? Start doing the things that we talk about on this channel. If you want to, you want to shed those layers of depression, do the things that we talk about on this channel, guys. Enhance everything in your life. You can do it. That's what this podcast is about, folks. And we're just beginning to scrape the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more to talk about. And we've got so many future episodes where we're going to dive so deeply into these things, folks. So absolutely deeply. All right, guys, I had to pause really quickly, but here we go. This is it. This is the reality that we are all in. Let's make the most of it. Let's start consuming the herbs. Let's start getting the proper supplements into our system, you guys. Let's start doing the inner work. Let's get the vitamin C and the magnesium in. I think that those are two of the cheapest things that you can start putting into your system to experience some physical relief from the physical problems that are going on in your body. The oxidative stress, the magnesium depletion. These are two things that are through the roof. And like the vitamin C, the ascorbic acid is cheap. I suggest that you only use it in powdered form. Now Foods has 8-ounce containers of it for about $9, and I take a minimum of 3 grams a day in water on an empty stomach. It's going to help you unload your gut as well, your colon, which is holding on to a bunch of waste that you've, And just to try it and experiment. I'm not recommending that you do it. That's why there's a disclaimer at the front of this video, but I'm just telling you what works for me and what I've seen work for many other people. So magnesium depletion from stress is through the roof. And we have a massive amount of oxidative stress on our system, which high ORAC foods and antioxidants can help us deal with, which is, I take a handful of things. I'm not going to get into it in this video. I don't just take supplements. There's certain sacraments I consume, ladies and gentlemen, and things that I can't really talk about on this channel, but as a foundation, part of the foundation for my physical health protocol, vitamin C. I take high ORAC foods like schizandra. I'm consuming resveratrol, pterostilbene, quercetin, things like that. I take a multi-mineral that contains things like vanadium and boron, things that people are deficient in. I keep my electrolytes high. I keep my magnesium levels high. I take just a single vitamin E tablet a day. Thank you to the research of Dr. Abram Hoffer for his amazing research on supplementation and things like vitamin E. There's a specific salesman right now on Instagram that wants to act like he owns the rights to vitamin E. Insanity. I'm not going to name any names, but I shouldn't have even mentioned that. This individual had a meltdown and blocked me about 1.5 years, 2 years ago for something very stupid. And it's just it's weird to me how people will try to claim that they discovered something, I found vitamin E, or I found magnesium, or this, that, and the other. No, there were people that laid down the foundation for you years and years ago, so show respect where it's due. But we'll save the whole supplementation thing for an upcoming video, you guys. But the foundation of what I teach is that, again, there's multiple layers to this onion, and when you've only learned to interact with one layer of the onion, yet you think you've figured it all out, you look dumb, you sound foolish, and you're just ignorant. If the health protocol that you're following isn't, if the health protocol, you guys, that you're following isn't inspiring you to reach beyond the tangible and discover more and be able to bring it back into your consciousness and learn from it, then you really want to question what you're doing. You really want to question what you've been doing. And that, I don't want to say it's a secret, but it's something that goes over the heads of a lot of people. A lot of people will miss out on that lesson, or not that lesson, that wisdom that I just shared with you. That if whatever you're doing in life, let's just rephrase it this way. If whatever you're doing in life doesn't inspire you to reach beyond what seems the tangible, or to be the tangible, if what you're doing in life doesn't inspire you to discover what else is out there, there's a huge problem. If you become too comfortable in your limited outlook. Now, it's very easy to get stuck in the limited outlook and think that what you're doing is that's all there is. A lot of people, what I mean by that, they'll grow up in this culture and they'll think that, okay, this is what life is. I have these limitations, my perception, my consciousness operates this exact way, and that's it. But there's much more to it than that, ladies and gentlemen. We can reach beyond what appears to be obvious, and through our sorcery, through the shifting of the assemblage point, through our proper practicing or practicing of health, and all the things that we talk about, we can actually learn, not just learn, but experience that there's a veil here, ladies and gentlemen, and that what we're being told is possible and what is impossible, it's all bullshit. We can poke a hole through the canvas dividing us from the truth that's been put there by culture. And once you do that, you realize that, holy shit, it's kind of like that movie, The Island. I think that's what it's called, with Scarlett Johansson and Ewan McGregor. Excellent film for the most part. A little too action-based and corny at the end, but that really demonstrates, folks, the situation that we're in. So, The Island, that movie with Ewan McGregor and, again, I think Scarlett Johansson. It's been a couple of years since I've seen it, but they're like these clones. Spoiler alert. And I don't remember what the clones are used for, but they're clones. And they're used for a very specific reason, and then they're recycled, but they get told before they're being recycled or like killed or something. I can't remember. They're being told that, oh, you're getting sent to this island. They're in like this station that's actually deep underground. They don't know that, though. They think they're on the outskirts of an island that they can get sent to. But they're deep underground, and they have like this wall that gets projected around them where it looks like there's water everywhere, and it's not. And it's actually just this clone brooding facility, and then they kill them, if I remember properly. But before you get killed, they're not aware they're getting killed. They think they're getting sent to an island, that they're graduating. Now, obviously, life's a lot different than that, folks. But what I'm trying to say here is that that projection on the screen that looks like water to all the people down underneath the ground where they think they're going to graduate, they think that they're actually about to go to an island. They actually think that the water that they see around them is real. It's all a projection. It's all fake. Our limitations, what we're being told is possible and impossible, is like that stupid fucking projection of the fucking digital water that all the clones see. You've been told what's possible and what isn't. Does that make sense? And what appears to be one way is actually the opposite. I mean, those people in that movie thought they were out on some like station floating on water, if I remember properly, and there's some island out there that they can get to through good behavior, this, that, and the other. And literally when people would look out at the island, there's like this water that was being projected through a screen. It was all an image. It's kind of like Plato's Cave, you guys. And in a sense, that movie is kind of like a modernized, futuristic sci-fi rendition of Plato's Cave. What appears to be obvious often is not. The way in which something appears to you is not an accurate indicator of what's beneath it or its energetic truth. Does that not make sense? It's much like Plato's Cave, which everybody should familiarize themselves with Plato's Cave if they have not. You can learn a lot from that. You can learn a lot from Plato's Cave. But you were brought into a world where, just like in the movie The Island, you were given a set of instructions to just believe without questioning. And because of that, you think you're like going somewhere when you're not. Does that make sense? Just like the movie The Island, you should really familiarize. You should watch it if you haven't. So, the individuals that were smart in that movie began to notice some clues about the integrity of the base that they were in. And they started to realize that, okay, something's wrong here. My common sense is not indicating or showing me that what we're being told is the actual truth. Let me question a little bit, and through questioning, see if this is actually a fucking base out in the middle of an island or wherever the fuck. Just like the movie The Matrix, you guys. I mean, The Matrix appears to be real to the people in it, but it's an artificially constructed dream world that your consciousness gets put into while your body is used back at a substation for fuel. Now, what's crazy about the Matrix is that your energy field is being used as an energy source for the Archons. You don't even know you have an energy field. Just like the people in the Matrix aren't aware that they're in the Matrix. See, there's a lot of truth in this shit, you guys. These stories. The Matrix is largely about, to some extent, is built on kind of some core foundations of Plato's Cave as well. A lot of these movies have Gnostic currents in them, not agnostic. Gnostic, Gnostic. And a lot of these movies and a lot of the best stuff that comes out of Hollywood, of which there's hardly any, a lot of the best stories and this, that, and the other, you guys, whether it's from Hollywood or not, what they're trying to teach you is that there's much more than what appears to be the solid parts. There's much more than what appears to you behind the scenes. In that what appears to be obvious is more often than not the actual case of what's going on. There's a lot more here. There's multiple layers to the onion, like I've said a million times. We've got to reach beyond the tangible to discover that, if we wish to do so. By doing so, we lose the ignorance is bliss programming, and life becomes exceptionally difficult in comparison to how it was prior, because now we have to take on the responsibility and maturity of knowing that there's more beyond the obvious. That makes life harder, because suddenly you have to take responsibility for those parts of yourself and the parts of reality that you weren't aware of prior. You see, it's much easier to go through hell, to go through the underworld, to go through purgatory here in this matrix when you aren't aware of the deeper truths. Because how your consciousness and your body and your mind interacts with, how your soul interacts with those other layers of the onion that you're not aware of now, that affects your life. And once you become aware of those layers, you have to actually do something with them. Does that make sense? I hope it does. So, I would suggest a solid foundation of the full body relaxation exercise with vitamin C and magnesium and a multi-mineral. I would start doing the yoga of Frank Rudolph Jung. Things like the Virto Div, start stretching those vertebral openings out. Start getting better communication between your head and your brain. Your head and your body and your brain. Do the Taoist internal exercises. Start doing the crane exercise and start doing the dragon exercise, as well as the eagle. Start grounding yourself, folks, and watch what happens in tandem with all the other things that we talk about. The doors of perception will start to slowly open. And as they do, your common sense will come back and your metaphysical antennas will begin to go from being lumped over and non-erect to fully erect. I hope that makes sense. Through the reinstalling of common sense, everything will go back into its proper compartment as you interact with it. Once you get your common sense back, and once you get your vertebral openings reestablished, once you get them to not be constricted, and you get proper communication between your head and your body and your body and your head, once you do all these things that we talk about, folks, and you really nourish your brain with the minerals, etc., once you do all these things, you guys, you'll get a certain foundation of common sense back, so that once that's established and you interact with life and you go through the trials and tribulations of the soul's journey, your common sense will have reached a level, folks, where you everything starts to be put into its proper compartment. It's a really difficult thing to explain, but once common sense, true common sense, comes back, which can only happen through the realignment of the proper posture and the reinstillment of proper nutrition and the actual repositioning of the assemblage point. Once all that stuff happens, you will interact with life in a way whereas before, when you went through certain things, your mind wasn't in the proper compartment to learn from that particular thing. But now that you're more holistically balanced, energetically, physically, emotionally, and spiritually and mentally, as you go through as things happen in life, your mind will be in a more proper position to actually learn from things, and everything will align itself properly, and you'll actually be able to attain wisdom. I'm starting to ramble. I love you all. Thank you for watching episode 2 of The Serpent's Tongue, and until next time, peace be with you.